Hey you guys, and thank you for tuning in to another video with The Fat Gay. My name's Isaac, and today I'm going to be talking about my history with binge eating. In order for me to kind of be transparent on my goal of, one, getting healthier, and two, kind of sharing that information and sharing what this process is like for me on this journey, I think it's imperative that I talk about the things that maybe people don't want to talk about or that they're uncomfortable talking about. So before I start, I do want to say that I've never officially been diagnosed with binge eating disorder. I can only say that the behavior... Say hi. Say hi. I can only say that the behaviors that I recognize in myself, especially in middle school and high school, in comparison to what people talk about the syndromes of binge eating disorder is, I can say it really sounds like what I did. I'm gonna talk about what that experience was like, bless you, and I'm also going to discuss how I kind of found a way to get past it, especially now in the journey that I'm on currently in my goal to lose weight and get healthier. So first things first, taking it back to when I was just a wee bit younger, typically middle school and high school especially, but focusing on middle school because I think that's when the trends really started to shape, and it was something that I was really doing on a regular basis. So at school, I was always self-conscious of the fact that yes, I was heavy, I got picked on a lot for it, so I didn't really like people to see me eat, especially large quantities that were going to sustain the weight that I was at that point in my life. So usually my binging, or when I would really overeat, would be in times where either A, I was by myself, and two, when I wasn't in school. So at school, I tried to eat like a normal person, you know, like a flaco. I think that that's where my unhealthy relationship with food really started to become apparent, was that during the school hours, I was eating very minimal amounts of food. I was usually skipping breakfast. And then when I got home, I was like, hungry, and I wanted to like eat everything in sight. And so granted, my parents had 4 boys, so my younger brother, and then I have 2 older brothers, and it's really difficult to get a whole bunch of growing kids to, you know, have food available to them, especially when we're going to the grocery store on a regular basis. So unfortunately, the snacks that were available were things like Pop-Tarts, cereal, those 100-calorie packets with like either Chips Ahoy's or Oreos or combos or whatever it was for us to have for snacks. So, and that was like a thing. Like I got home and like, ooh, I gotta have my snacky time, right? But unfortunately for me, snack time wasn't just getting something to eat and calling it a day, right? For me, it was, okay, so my grandmother's in her room, because at that point my grandmother lived with us, and I'm going to have a Pop-Tart, right? Even though Pop-Tarts were supposed to be for breakfast, I would grab a Pop-Tart and I would stick that bad boy in the toaster, and while it was in the toaster, I would grab a sleeve of crackers and I would put jelly and cream cheese or butter, and then I also had this weird habit of putting ketchup on crackers, which I don't really know why that's the thing. I think my dad does that. I don't know. Whatever. It was something that I did. While the Pop-Tart was, you know, in the toaster, I would munch on a few things, you know, typically crackers. Then I would take the Pop-Tarts out of the toaster, pour a glass of milk, or sometimes have like a café con leche, and I would sit down, and that would be my visible snack time. So this is what everybody would see that I was doing, which was having Pop-Tarts after school, right? Mind you, my mom was probably getting home like an hour and a half later, and either my grandmother or my mom cooked dinner, and that's what I was having. At this point, I'd already had my Pop-Tarts and probably killed half a sleeve to a full sleeve of saltine crackers with jelly and cream cheese or whatever else I could put on there. But that wasn't where it ended. So usually after everybody had seen me have my Pop-Tart as my snack, then I knew that I needed to go incognito, right? So like people shouldn't know that I was continuing to eat as if it was like, you know, some big secret, because hello, I was the way that I was at. And I think that in high high school, I averaged at about 250 pounds. That was kind of like the consistent flow for me. Towards my junior and senior year, I did go on one of the diets that I went on for a long time, and I got down to, I want to say like 180 or like high 70s, and that was one of the times that I lost about like 80 something pounds in total. So that was really like where my binging, I think, took a lot, or really actually happened, because I was depriving myself for long periods of time and then coming home and then overeating whatever I could get my hands on. Cereal was something that was easy for me to hide, where I would get a coffee cup, put a spoon in it, and I would act like I was drinking coffee throughout the day, and in reality I was having cereal, you know, Cocoa Rice Krispies or Fruit Loops or whatever other cereal was available, Captain Crunch, God forbid, because Lord knows I would do some damage. I would sit there and have like 1 or 2 cups of cereal, right? Then I would either go outside and play, or, you know, watch TV or do homework, and I would usually grab something to munch on while I was doing that. And then of course my grandmother would like, oye, pero tú ya comiste el Pop-Tart cuando llegaste de la escuela. Ay, sí, mima, pero lo que tenían en el almuerzo no me gustó, so, you know, yo quiero Pop-Tart, or yo quiero papita, lo que sea, right? So long story short, it's like, hey, you already ate, why are you eating again? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I didn't eat lunch at school because I didn't like what they were serving. Lies. You know, it would kind of justify it. So then my mom would come home and she would cook, and then I'd eat dinner. So at this point, okay, I'd eaten a substantial amount of food. Now, as I got older, that habit did have less and less of an impact, because of course as I got older I was no longer around my family, or, you know, I wasn't living at home, so I had moved out, living in my first apartment. And living in my first apartment, I definitely saw those habits, where at work I'd be like, oh, I'm on a diet and I'm doing blank, 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 but then on the way home it's like, let me stop at Wendy's and get myself something, or Subway, or a whole bunch of other fast food restaurants that I had available. So I knew better than to have specific foods in my house, because of the fact that I knew that I would eat through them. So I didn't really do groceries, which honestly contributed to the problem, because then I would just make really unhealthy decisions, whether it was like ordering Chinese food or ordering pizza. I think honestly one of the biggest blessings that I ever got was the fact that I developed an allergy to sesame seeds. Granted, it's almost killed me a couple of times, but can you get down? But it has kind of taken out the opportunity for me to eat one of my favorite foods, which, you know, coincidentally was something that you could binge on rather easily, because they usually would give us really great portions. Now, another thing that I will say is that I feel that this is one of the reasons that I hate diets so much. And when I say diets, I mean like really strict programs that can tell you, you eat this amount and you have this for breakfast, this for lunch, no this, no that. So like no rice, no bread, no crackers, no soda, no nothing, right? So I think that what happened to me is I started to condition myself, where when I was dieting, I was very limited to what I was allowed to have. But then when I would cheat, or I would have a cheat meal, it was like almost being exposed to something that was like triggering as a drug for me. And at that point I was like, well, I already broke the rules, right? So today's out the window, I might as well make up for it. And I think that's more so what I did as an adult, as opposed to eating like really large quantities within a short amount of time and hiding it, because I lived on my own and it was a lot easier for me to do. So what happened was that I was starting to recognize that I was doing these things on a regular basis, right? Understanding that I was saying, oh, I was on a diet, I'm doing Atkins or keto or whatever it is, and the second I'd have something with sugar in it, not only was I getting sugar in my bloodstream, which was causing those cravings again, but I was also telling myself that I had gone off the rails, and I was like, might as well go all out if I want to continue the day. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues that we have in society today, is that we perpetuate this idea that, you know, one food is something that is a reward, or you break the rules or the structure of what you're supposed to do, you've in essence failed that program. I think that that's something that just the more and more that I went throughout my weight loss journey, it was, okay, well, I messed this up, I need to go ahead and, you know, give up for the day and start again on Monday. God forbid I broke my diet on a Wednesday, because usually it would like wreck the whole week and I would gain whatever I'd lost in that process. I think that that's something that it really kind of took me a long time to come to the terms with the fact that I did in fact have a problem when it came to control and what I was eating, but also recognizing that there were certain triggers for me that would make those behaviors even more apparent. even now, snacks for me are something that I have to kind of stay away from. Now, in the journey that I have right now, I'm trying to incorporate those back into my diet so that I have them when I feel hungry and I don't make poor decisions, but I have to be really strategic about what I purchase just to make sure that I'm not buying something that's gonna eventually sabotage myself. Now, I'm not saying that I'm saying, no, I can't have any of these things, but for example, I did grocery shopping today, and when I say grocery shopping, I ordered on Instacart, but you know, I digress. And I will try to do things like dried mango, or I have like these, they're called like dang sriracha, like rice cake snack things. Now, I realize that when I talk about the things that I eat, that might not be great for everyone. I'm just talking about things that are working for me in my current process. So, you know, don't take that to heart, because like I've said in all of my other videos, I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor, and I don't claim to be. I'm just talking about what works for me. I also tried the Blue Diamond like cocoa dusted almonds, and usually when I want something sweet, I can have some of those and that'll kind of kick that craving. Now, another thing that I can tell you that really works for me, or that, you know, kind of helps as a treat, is finding, you know, something that you would normally associate as bad, and then finding a way to make a healthier option for it. So for example, something that I got from my mom and from my grandmother is that I really love ice cream. So ice cream and cookies are probably going to be like my kryptonite. Like, I've never been a cake person. Like, I'll have cake if it's there because they're like, hello, I'm gonna have some. But cookies, you put some cookies in front of me and we're gonna have a little bit of a problem, because I love cookies. I love cookies. Love them. So what I've tried to do is find healthier options for me so that I can still feel like I'm having those things without
Stop it. You're out.
So something that I've been doing to try to kick that habit is look for healthier options that are gonna feel like I'm still having a cookie, but without, you know, all of the negative macros that are associated with that typically. So what I would suggest for you is to really try to find things that work for you, that still satisfy what you want, but that aren't going to put you back. So what did I do to overcome this habit, or this really bad association that I had with food, especially in regards to binging? Well, I think that that's something that I'm probably gonna struggle with forever, because it's something that I know that I'm guilty of. So besides watching like mukbangs on YouTube and kind of like programming to myself, like, look at someone else doing this, look at what they're doing to themselves, what are the thoughts that are going through your brain, and reapplying that back to myself, that kind of helps associate like negatively with those habits, and really kind of keep me reeled in as far as something that I know is going to ultimately hurt me. I've had to look at my relationship with food and kind of separate this idea of like, I'm in this program, like I have to fit in this box, and that is all I can eat. Because what happens is when I do that, then I feel like I'm stuck, and then the second I eat anything outside of those guidelines, that's when I make really poor choices and I start doing things that are really going to be harmful for me, and that's when I really start getting into those binging sessions. It really helps now because I have roommates. I have two of my very dear friends living with me, and I can sit down and eat all the things that they were, you know, that I was eating at that time without them being like, hey, what you doing? I'd be like, nothing, mind your business, okay? I'm not here to judge anyone, you know, that does struggle with that, or, you know, say, hey, look, you know, I'm better than you because I don't do that anymore. No, because if I'm being completely honest, that is all desires that I still have on a regular basis. But what I've done is kind of remove this idea of like, hey, are you allowed to eat this on your diet? Yeah, I can eat whatever I want. And that's true, and I stick to that. You know, for example, I went to my dad's house, my uncle's there, and he made homemade Cuban bread, which I know I talked about in one of my previous videos that Cuban bread is a trigger food for me. It is a trigger food. However, I wasn't bringing it, you know, for myself. He did make some for my roommate, which I'm, you know, she was very happy about. However, I know that that's not mine and I'm not touching it. But I had a couple of pieces and I felt great. When I said a couple, you know, a few. And that's it. Like I had something that I'm not gonna have on a regular basis, and I'm gonna keep going. I had to stop like this idea that like, oh carajo, I broke the diet, guess I have to, you know, restart and redo everything starting Monday. Let me go all out today. And I think those are the ideas, that's the association that this dieting culture that we live in has kind of perpetuated. Like, you have to stick to this program, and this program is basically a moving vehicle, and if you jump jump off the moving vehicle, you have to go back to the train station and start again. And that's the issue I think that we have that can really contribute and cause people to develop some of these eating disorders. Programs like Atkins or keto, or all the other things that are out there, that people are constantly trying to sell us on, don't do something that's really important. And one, that's teach us what we should and shouldn't be putting into our body on a regular basis. Two, understanding that self-control is definitely going to have to be something that we come to terms with. And three, which I know people don't want to hear, and it's never going to be something fun, is that you are going to have to make hard decisions on a regular basis. You're constantly going to be pulled in for temptation. Unfortunately for us, for those of us that do struggle with their relationship with food, it's an addiction, and it's an addiction that we can't cut cold turkey as opposed to all of the other addictions that are out there. And that's regardless of where you are on the spectrum of, whether you have an eating disorder or you just struggle with your weight or just being healthy in general. I think that that's something that we have to come to terms with. Like, it's always going to be difficult. You have to make those choices. However, you need to also stop self-sabotaging by doing things that are going to hurt you in the long run. Am I saying that I don't binge on some healthy snacks every once in a while? There are times where I'll say to myself, like, hey, I'm gonna buy like these dried mangoes, for example, or I'm gonna have some almonds, and I'll catch myself like going back to it over and over and over again, and I'll say, okay, you are obviously hungry, you need to eat a meal, or you need to step back and realize that you're falling back into these behaviors. And I think that that's the most important step, is coming to terms with the fact that you have this problem, identifying what that looks like, and then actively work on trying to stop it. And I think that's one of the most important parts. And I realize that for everyone, it's not that simple. Some people have to seek treatment or, get medical help, and that's okay. And that's the thing, is that you have to have these conversations, and you have to start talking to people and realize that this is something that you may or may not be struggling with, and then look for opportunities to support. And I am going to provide a couple of links in the description box below of areas and places that you can go to talk about or read up on these things and to find what steps to do next. If you've struggled with some sort of eating disorder, whether it is something regarding binging or anorexia or bulimia or any of the countless disorders that are out there, or even if you think that maybe you have had them, I'm curious to hear about your journey. What did you do? How did you overcome it? And how did you come to terms with that? So if that's something you're interested in talking about, leave that in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' experience and look forward to having those conversations with you. All right, you guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my content and you'd like to see more content in the future, hit the subscribe button below. If you have ideas of other things or questions that you'd like to ask me for content that you want to see in the future, also leave that in the comment section below. I post new videos on Mondays and Thursdays. Have a great one.